Hello and welcome to this edition of Peak Life. Today we're talking all about a very important location here in the city, right in the heart of City Park. It's the 9/11 Memorial, and I've got Judy Manley with the 9/11 Memorial Committee here to chat with me a little bit about that. Thanks for being here, Judy.
Thanks for having me.
So let's go way back to the beginning. So many people, especially those who frequent City Park, are probably aware that this memorial from 9/11, from the World Trade Center, this beam in particular, is in City Park. But, we're how far away from New York City? We're in little Chesapeake. How did we end up with this incredibly significant piece of history?
Well, way back in the fall of 2010, the Fine Arts Commission learned that the New York Port Authority still had some steel that was left over in their warehouse that they were looking for communities to submit a request for so they could empty out that warehouse. And at that point, the Fine Arts Commission decided to submit a request to the city to see if they would approve a request to acquire a beam from New York. Mm-hmm. So at that point, the request was approved by City Council, and the Fine Arts Commission, with the help of then Undersheriff Jim O'Sullivan, mm-hmm. decided that they would write a letter to the Port Authority, and it was approved in the spring of 2011, and that's what got the ball rolling. So in August of 2011, mm-hmm. We sent a caravan up. We sent a caravan up to New York City that had a truck and driver supplied by Givens Trucking, and that went up there to retrieve the beam. And at the same time, we retrieved the limestone from the Pentagon that had also been requested by Sheriff O'Sullivan.
That's right.
Yes, so they met on the eastern shore on the trip back, and the limestone was transferred to the truck with the beam, and they came in across the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel into Hampton Roads with a full escort of public safety officials. So it was a big day for the city of Chesapeake, but unfortunately it was also the day that Virginia had the big earthquake. So the media was quite focused on that natural event, and the artifacts probably did not get the attention they deserved at that particular moment in time.
Interesting, yeah.
So at that point, we had the beam, we had the limestone, and the Fine Arts Commission decided that they would check with the folks up in Pennsylvania to see if there was any artifacts available from the Flight 93 mm-hmm. site. And they did, and we were granted that third artifact. So they went up, the Fine Arts Commission representatives went to Pennsylvania just 2 days before 9/11, before the 10th anniversary.
Wow.
And retrieved the field stone from that site. And it made it back down here in time for the Freedom Festival that took place at City Park, which of course was the first time all three artifacts were displayed in one place at the same time.
Wow. Now, there was quite a vision for how we want to display these things, and that's really where you and your compatriots' artistic brains really came into play. Now we have this big, beautiful memorial, but talk to me about how we got to the point of we've got this big steel beam. What do we do with it? How do we make it something that we can honor and memorialize?
Well, after the artifacts were received and we got past the Freedom Festival, the beam went into storage for a period of time while the Memorial Committee got organized and started making plans for what a memorial site would look like. We knew that it would be in City Park, but obviously there was a planning phase involved with how the beam was going to be displayed. Mm-hmm. So after that got underway, in 2013, the beam came out of storage and it was placed in the park, and that was the beginning of the formal memorial site in the park.
So let's stick with the beam for now, and then we'll talk about the others in a second. So it's every year, I feel like every time I go see it, something new is happening. It's really come a long way. What is the future of it? Are we there? Is it where we want it to be?
Well, we are getting very close to where we want it to be. Several years after the beam was placed in the park, we added a wrought iron fence in the shape of a pentagon surrounding the beam. And late last year, towards the end of 2020, the interpretive signage explaining the events of 9/11 were placed around the fence. So our signage is there now. And the next big item is the installation of our flagpole, which is currently underway, and we are hopeful that it will be complete very shortly, if not in time for next week's ceremony for,
Great.
you know,
For the
very shortly thereafter.
Yeah, sure.
So at that point, I think we're kind of at a place where we're satisfied that the memorial site is what it needs to be, and it represents what we want it to represent. So we will leave it at that for a while, let things settle.
Yeah.
And it's not to say we might not add more elements after that, but we'll take a little break from it and see if there's anything else we wish to do to develop the site.
So what did we do with the other two artifacts from Washington, D.C. and Pennsylvania?
Those two artifacts are currently located in the visitor lobby at the Chesapeake Parks and Recreation headquarters on Progressive Drive in the Greenbrier section of the city. They're right there in the lobby along with more interpretive signage explaining the events of 9/11. So they are there for anybody to go in during normal visiting hours. And there's also an opportunity to donate to the memorial there in the lobby.
You know, so we all kind of have our personal connections to the attacks on 9/11, but you bring such an interesting artistic background and artistic brain towards it. What was that like for you to be able to put those skills to work for such a significant piece of history?
It's something you don't anticipate in your lifetime really